the security posture on Microsoft before we get started. The reason I want to do that is because I think a lot of people's fears typically when it comes to Teams is, how can something that's so easy, so efficient, so useful on a daily basis, it can't possibly be secure. There's got to be some issues with it. The first thing I will tell you is that one of Microsoft's main missions is balancing efficiency with security. I actually teach specifically a Microsoft 365 security training as well, and they pretty much asked me to open up that training by explaining that Microsoft in a whole realize that a lot of organizations need the most high level security possible, but there's also a lot of organizations who are more worried about being efficient and making things work throughout the daily basis. And so they wanted to find a marriage between that, something where they could essentially touch a lot of different organizations on that front. And so, what I will say, I actually read this a few weeks ago. Microsoft's making a huge push. Initially when they were first coming out, they weren't necessarily known as the number one security company out there when it came to, business functions. But pretty much at this point, they're really seen as a leader in the space. They invest over $1 billion a year just on salaries of people who are focused on security. So, it's definitely one of their biggest pushes as an organization. It's something that they're definitely trying to bring value to customers with. They employ a thought process called zero trust, trust no one, verify everything. And so essentially what you'll notice with Microsoft, assuming that you have multi-factor authentication turned on, you have single sign-on, you have Azure Active Directory, might be just throwing out names you might not be aware of. But ultimately what I'm trying to get to is their whole focus is on identity and access management. Okay, it's all about making sure that whoever accesses whatever resources, we know exactly who they are, we know exactly where they are, and we know what time they're accessing all those different resources. And so, using all the different features inside of the M365 suite, Microsoft is able to focus on that and use a lot of different tools like biometric authentication, for example, to make sure that people are who they say they are. And so, they talk about it in the sense that they're protecting not necessarily at the app layer, but at the they're protecting at the app layer because they're not letting people even get access to the information unless they confirm they are who they say they are. And so, at the end of the day, what I wanted to share with you is that do not worry. You're partnering with a phenomenal company when it comes to security. They're going to be compliant in pretty much every regulation you can think of. You might have to make a little switches, and Michael can help you walk through that process. But HIPAA compliant, all that other good stuff, they're going to be good to go. So point being, this is definitely something to trust. And so that's not going to be a concern. What's going to be a concern for you is, does this make sense for me on a daily basis, right? Is this app something that I want to be employing and using every single day? And so my hope, the answer is going to be yes for you. I'm going to walk you through everything today, show you all the cool little tips and tricks. And then if you guys have any questions, you let me know. This is going to be, again, a hands-on lab. You're going to be able to touch and feel this environment, which I'll just switch to right now. And the key here is that if there's ever anything that doesn't make sense, you need to let me know. Okay. I love questions. I love helping you out, and it really helps everyone else in the group. We always talk about sometimes you ask a question and it was the same thing somebody else was thinking. They just didn't, raise their hand. So if you want to, please let me know. One of the coolest ways to actually do that is a new feature here inside of Microsoft Teams called the raise your hand feature. I'll go ahead and do that. You notice it gives me a nice little yellow box around my face. So I know that, I'm raising my hand. So if anybody ever does that, I'll quickly be able to see that and I'll just call on you. So that's probably gonna be the easiest way. But if you wanted to unmute, you wanted to, just put it in the chat window, that works just the same as well. Okay, so let's jump here into Microsoft Teams, everybody. You should have this loaded up on one of your screens or your entire screen. This is gonna be the demo lab we're gonna be walking through today. What I wanted to quickly do first is just give you kind of a nice tour of the application, and then just quickly get into what we call the command bar here on the left-hand side, activity all the way through calls. Okay, so first thing I'm going to quickly point you to, go ahead and navigate over your little face right here. It's going to be in the top right. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and select that. What you'll notice is this is going to tell you who you are, but you'll also have an opportunity to zoom here. I'm going to go ahead and zoom a couple times so that everybody can see a little better. Okay, but something else I also want you to point out is that this is where you're going to be able to change the settings inside of your own Teams environment. One of the first things you'll notice here is you have an availability section. So we call this a presence indicator inside of Microsoft Teams. What this is really cool for, especially when we're talking about remote work, like a lot of different organizations have been dealing with, is this is going to let you know in terms of all the different people that you're working with, Are they currently on the application and available? That's how you would get this green check mark. Are they on the application? Maybe they're in the call or they're a little busy. That's where you'll see busy or do not disturb. Or are they just completely off of the application? That's how you're going to see this. Okay. So it's a really useful tool because it's going to tell you in terms of my coworkers, who can I reach out to, who's going to be able to talk to me. Additionally, similar to Outlook, you can actually set a status message. This is going to sync with your Outlook. So if you put in Outlook, it's going to appear in here inside of Teams. Good example of how to use this. Let's say, you're out golfing for the rest of the day and you just want to let everybody know. Just quickly put a status message. Anytime anyone ever tries to message you, they're actually going to see that status message first. So, it's going to keep them all in the loop. If you continue going down here, you notice this gear icon. Okay, go ahead and open that up. This is going to be where you actually see all of the settings for your personal version of Teams. This is not going to affect the settings for the entire company. If you wanted to make any changes like that, you're going to actually have to go through what's called the Teams admin portal. So the administrator for your Teams environment is going to actually have to make those changes. But specifically your environment, what it looks like, what features you have enabled, that's going to be here in this gear section. The one thing I will definitely say, pro tip, you got to make sure you do, if you haven't done this yet, is you notice right here where it says turn on new meeting experience. Okay, don't do this right now because it'll restart your Teams and you'll get kicked out of the meeting. But after you're done here today, go ahead and take a look inside of your Teams environment and make sure that this is turned on and enabled. Reason being, this is going to give you access to all the latest features inside of Teams. It's going to have, the new meeting options that they rolled out a few weeks ago. So if you haven't done that, you might have an older version of Teams, so make sure you do that. You'll notice you can change themes here, dark, high contrast. Personally, I like the default way, the most, but, completely up to you. You notice there's privacy settings in here. So, one of the most important things, right? Do you want do not disturb enabled? Do you want read receipts? How do you want to participate in team surveys, things of that nature? Pretty simple stuff. You also have notifications. So we're going to be talking about this notification zone right here for teams and channels in a little bit. But ultimately, this is going to tell you exactly how you receive notifications here on the Teams application. If you wanted to change the way that happens, you'd be able to do so inside of here as well. And then finally, just quickly going through devices and calls, this is all going to be for settings inside of your calls. And these devices are going to be the devices that are currently tied to your Teams environment. So you notice I have an earpiece right here. I had to actually add that into my Teams here in the settings and enable that as my Teams device. So if you're, for example, switching between different devices, you may not have switched it in the settings, and that's why you can't use it if you ever had any issues with that previously. So just an FYI. Okay, so that's the settings. Pretty simple stuff, but if you want to make any changes, that's probably the best place to do it. Moving on here, go ahead and put your cursor here into the search window. I actually want everybody to go ahead and search something. Search for something maybe inside of your specific environment that you might be looking for. I just want to show you how Microsoft Search works here inside of Microsoft Teams. I'm going to go ahead and just search marketing just to give you guys an example. But what you'll notice, the reason this is really cool is it's going to take information from 3 different data sets. Okay, so it's going to give me information on marketing that has to do with any of the messages that I've sent. So it looks in this message, for example, Nestor said, hi, sales and marketing, the team itself. And so it got tagged here, marketing. Over here, it looks like in this post section, I sent something about marketing collaborated right here. The key here is that you're going to have quick access to anything that has to do here with marketing if you wanted to quickly search for something. So maybe you said something previously and you can't seem to find it. Go ahead and just search for it. Maybe you have some files, right? This is another thing that you can use inside of here that have to do with marketing, but you can't remember where you placed it. No matter how organized we are, it always ends up happening. And so if you're ever looking for it, if you just search for it, it's going to be really easy to find, right? Looks like this international marketing campaign document is available to me right here. It's going to navigate me directly to that document. Same thing for marketing my audience, cross-cultural marketing, all that cool stuff. The other information too, it doesn't look like anybody in my organization is in marketing, but if you were looking for somebody, it's going to show me anybody in my organization that has to do with that search as well. So, just like all that, you're going to have a lot of functionality there inside of the search. I highly recommend it if you're ever looking for something. And then finally, just ease of access here in terms of, tips and tricks. A lot of people don't realize this is all built over the internet. So, similar to a browser, you actually can go back and forth. So, I use all the time, for example, let's say I'm here inside of this file, this international marketing campaign document, and then I actually receive a chat. So then let's say I go ahead and I jump into chat. and then I go message somebody. If I wanted to just quickly jump back into it, I could actually just click the back button, right? And it's going to take me directly back into that document. So in terms of navigation and functionality inside of the app, there's so many things that you can do inside of Teams that you're probably going to be bouncing back and forth between different pieces of the application. And so if you wanted to quickly do that, this back and forth button is going to make your life a lot easier. So that's a quick little tour of this top bar and what it looks like. The next thing I wanted to do is just quickly touch right here on the command bar that we call it. So everybody go ahead and jump into activity for me. I'm going to go ahead and jump in here as well. So, activity, I think people complicate activity a little too much. Activity ultimately is really just a notification zone. That's what I call it. Anything that's happening inside of your environment that pertains to is going to be available and present here inside of your activity section. The key there, though, is that the general setting for activity is that anything that has to do with you directly is going to appear here. So what does that? What do you mean exactly by that? So looks like I was mentioned directly. Hi at Megan Bowen. They sent me a message in this team, so I got a notification. Looks like Adele replied to me here inside of one of these teams, so I got a direct notification. It looks like I was mentioned again inside of one of these teams at Megan Bowen inside of the post section. I think that if I scroll down, yep, I was added to a team. So I was directly added to a team. I'm going to get a notification for that. So, what am I trying to get to here? What I'm trying to get to here is that the general setting, of course, is only things that pertain to you. So you might be in a situation similar to mine. And so I just kind of want to share this with you. I'm inside of about 15, 20 teams where if there's any kind of activity, anybody saying anything, I want to know within 5 minutes. Okay. Everything is about speed. So for me, being able to actually enable notifications for any activity is something that I am very interested in doing. Okay. That might not be your specific situation. You might only want things that pertain to you. But, if you're in a situation where you want, information ASAP, then I would recommend coming here into the face. Okay. Going back into the settings, what we were talking about, and getting here into the notifications section. What you'll notice is that for teams and channels, right, you'll get desktop and activity notifications for your custom settings. Again, these custom settings are direct mentions, direct messages, direct things that pertain to me. If I want it so that all activity, all messages, all reactions, all files that are sent here inside of the post section or inside of my environment, I could then go ahead and click on that and enable that. So now anytime I get any kind of activity inside of my team's environment, I'll get a notification. And so that's a decision, I recommend everybody consider. It's not something that it's going to be useful for everybody, but I just wanted to share that with you because I think a lot of people don't actually realize that. What you'll get is if you don't change the setting and some activity happens is it'll actually bold. Okay. So if you look right here, for example, inside of this channel NC460 sales, there was some activity here inside of this channel that I wasn't, particularly involved with. So they didn't mention me. So if I click on it, it looks like Maria added Pradeep here. So she mentioned him directly. Doesn't have to do with me, but you notice it bolded because it was activity. If I would have enabled, the all activity, I would have actually gotten an activity notification for that, and I would have known that message actually occurred. So again, something that you might want to consider. Doesn't make sense for everybody, but for some of us, it makes total sense. So, go ahead and give that a thought. Is there any questions in regards to activity here? I want to just do a quick pause. Is there something, that's not clear, something that I can bring more clarity to? Okay. I think that hopefully makes sense to everybody. That's probably the most simple piece of Teams. It's pretty straightforward, but oh, hold up. There's a chat. There's a chat. Lamar is good. Okay, great. Thanks, Lamar. All right, so let's jump into chat, you guys. This is where the fun really starts, okay? A lot of people think about Teams as like, okay, this is just for video. This is maybe just for storage. This is just for chat. Chat is really one of the pillars of the actual platform, primarily because, Microsoft likes to call it the new communication experience. So a lot of people assume, it's chat. Okay, cool. I'll just be able to send messages back and forth. Yes, you're going to be able to send messages. That's one of the cool things. But you're going to be able to do a lot of other things. Group chats, pinning specific chats to the top of your actual environment so they're easy to access. You're going to be able to set meetings, make calls. All of that here, share documents inside of chat, okay? It's a lot more than just a simple messaging platform. And so my hope is that I can kind of walk everybody through that. And of course, if you have any questions, you let me know. First thing I want to do though is I want to make sure everybody knows, the basic fundamental knowledge of how to actually send a message here inside of chat. So what I want everybody to do is to go ahead and send me a message. So the way that you're going to do that is it's going to be this little square with a pencil icon, it looks like. Okay, if you click on that, it's going to go ahead and open up a new chat. You'll be able to type my name. My name again is Megan Bowen. So go ahead in this area, just type in Megan Bowen, and then go ahead and just send me a message. Hello, how are you doing? Whatever it is. I just want to make sure everybody can send me a message, and then if you go ahead and send me a message, I'll include everybody here into a group chat. So it looks like Alex is typing. Hopefully he'll send me something pretty soon, and I'm hoping everybody else is going to have a chance to do it as well. All right, there's Lynn. All right, great. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Alex. Anybody else can send me a message? Deborah, all right, it's a party. Cool. So Lynn is here. Notice it bolds if you haven't read it. So I'm going to go ahead and read it. She says hi. I'll give it a thumbs up. Alex is here. How are you doing, Alex? I'll give you a thumbs up as well. And Deborah as well. I'll give you a thumbs up. Anybody else want to send me a message? I know there's more. Oh, there's Irvin. Okay, great. I can't. I am under my own profile, not the fake one. Okay, Kyla, did you load the other persona by chance? If not, it's okay. You don't need to, but don't worry about it. Okay, yeah, not a problem. Not a problem. Okay, we got here. Now we have Irvin. Help. Benny needs help. Oh, Benny, were you trying to say hello? So this is the chat window here inside of the actual Teams meeting. I was hoping you could send me a message inside of the demo environment to Megan Bowen. Does that make sense? Okay, Benny's typing. Okay, let me try. Perfect. Let me know if you have any issues. Of course, the same thing. It's going to be this little square with a pencil. Go ahead and select that. Type in Megan Bowen into the search window, or sorry, into the person. Something actually you might not know. Let me actually share this with you. If you actually just click on the @ button, this should actually go ahead and give you a list of everybody inside your organization that you can send a message to. So if you're ever looking for somebody, that's a cool little feature that you might be able to use. Okay, so hopefully, Benny, you're going to be able to send me a message. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a group chat here with everybody that's actually sent me one. So Lynn, Alex, Deborah, and Irvin have all sent me messages. Kyla got it figured out. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new message group chat. So I'm going to add Lynn. I'm going to add Alex. I'm going to add Deborah and Irvin. Okay, there's Patty and there's Isaiah. Cool. So you guys are in batch number 2. I will add you into this group chat in just a second. It actually gives me a good opportunity to show everybody how to do that after you create the group chat. So thank you for sending a message. I'll just say hello to everyone. What I really just wanted to show you here is that creating a group chat is very similar to creating any other chat, right? You just quickly add individuals that you want to add to it, but now you have an opportunity to actually communicate with a group. However, communicating inside of a lot of different groups could make your life a little difficult. Why? People ask. Okay, well, what happens if, it says Alex, Deborah, Irvin +2? Okay, what happens if I have Alex, Deborah, and Irvin in 3 other group chats with a bunch of other different people? Okay, it's going to make your life very difficult to navigate. You're going to be trying to find what specific chat you want to get into, and so it's just going to make your life difficult. And so what I typically recommend, let's go ahead and name that group chat. Let's give it a name so we know what it is. And let's also pin it so that it's easily accessible. Okay. So the way that you're going to do that is, number one, let's go ahead and first and change the name. I'm going to go ahead and change the name first. Everyone else in this group chat, I encourage you to change it as well. I'll show you how to do it. So if you look right here where all the names are at, and then you look that there's a pencil icon directly to the right of it. If you actually go ahead and select that pencil icon, you're going to have an opportunity to give this group a name. You might have groups depending on projects. You might have groups for specific departments. However you structure, just make sure you put a name that makes sense. I'm going to go ahead and call us the sales team. Okay. And then I'll go ahead and save it. So now what you'll notice is on the left-hand side, instead of it saying Irvin and all these other people +2, it's going to actually say the project sales team now because Irvin changed it. Awesome. So, this is going to give us a much easier way of actually finding that chat and understanding what it's about and who I'm talking to. On top of that, though, what you'll notice, Miriam actually just sent me a message, so that's great. But what you'll notice is that project sales was originally at the very top at first. Okay. But now that Miriam sent me a message, it went down 1 because it's not the most recent message. So then what happens if I come back 3 hours later and I've gotten 20 messages, and so now project sales is all the way down. Okay. And then I'm gonna have to go find it. So I got really tired of that myself, personally in my environment. So I figured out a way to make my life a little easier. If you actually look over any group chat, or any chat in general, actually, I should say, if you hover over it, you'll notice that there's going to be a 3 dots called an ellipses that actually populates. Okay. What you're going to be able to do here is you can actually click on that and then click on this pin button. So now what's going to happen is that group chat or that messaging with whoever you were talking to is actually going to be pinned here at the top of your chat. So now if I actually go back into calendar, I go into Teams, and I come back here into chat, project sales team is never going to move. It's going to stay there. It's going to be static. It's going to make it very easy for me to access. And so I highly recommend changing the name so you know what it is, and then pinning it so it's easy to access. Okay. So that's, kind of the fundamental pieces of sending a message and, creating teams and group chats. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to actually add people to a group chat if you've done that previously. So it looks like we have a project sales team, but now it looks like Isaiah, Patty, and Miriam want in. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add them as well. The way that you're going to do that is, if you notice here in the top right, it's got like a little people icon, and then it's got a 5. So that's telling me that there's 5 people currently inside of this group chat. If I select it, you notice at the bottom, I'm either going to be able to leave the group chat, or I can actually add people. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go ahead and add some people. I'm going to add Isaiah. I'm going to add Patty. And I'm going to go ahead and add Miriam. Okay. What you'll notice is you're also going to have some other options, right? You can decide to include the chat history. You can include history from a certain number of days, or you can decide to include all of the chat history. Completely up to you. Maybe if you were talking about them, might not be the best idea to give them all the chat history, but completely up to you. In this case, I'm just going to include all of it so that everybody can actually see it, and I'm going to go ahead and add them. And you'll notice it'll actually tell you now here that Megan added Isaiah and 2 others here to the chat and shared all of the chat history. Okay, so that's the first little piece of sending messages, creating group chats. What I will say, actually, I'll take a step back, and of course, if there's any questions on what I covered, please let me know. I'm going to take a step back though really quickly and talk about the idea behind chat itself. A lot of people in this day and age, the reason chat has gotten so popular with a lot of organizations is because previously they were just using email for everything. And that still goes for a lot of different organizations that are out in the market right now. Email is the #1 way that they're communicating. That's not necessarily a terrible way to communicate. The only problem is that email hasn't really progressed over the last 20 years. It's stayed pretty similar in terms of, functionality. And we've reached a point where there's so much information going on back and forth that, we need a way to communicate besides email. We want to keep email for long form important messages. But if we want to have a quick conversation, we have a quick question, we have something that we want them to review, chat is really going to be the best way for you to communicate. It's quicker, it's faster, it's easier to see. You'll know actually whether or not your teammates are actually available because of the presence indicator. And so you're going to be able to get an answer much quicker inside a chat, and I highly recommend it. We typically tell people, if you really commit to this, you can see a pretty sizable reduction in the amount of emails you get every single day, because you're going to be navigating a lot of your conversations here into chat. Something to consider. It's going to take policy inside of the organization as a whole that'll really help push that agenda forward. That being said, messaging is not the only thing you can do here inside of chat. I'm going to show you some other features here that you might be able to leverage as well. The majority of them are going to be here inside of this box where you actually have the chat, and also right here underneath where you actually type a message. First thing I'll run through here is the formatting option. Not something I typically use all the time. But what you'll notice is that you're going to be able to change the bold, the italicize, change the color and the size of text. If that's something that you want to do, you have the ability to do that. Something else that's really cool inside of here, a lot of people don't realize you can actually set delivery options for messages, similar to email. You can set a message as important, you could set it as a standard, and you can even send it as urgent. Somebody go ahead and send me privately, not in the group chat, Miriam, Patty, Isaiah, Irvin, Deborah, Alex. Go ahead and send me a message, an urgent message, just directly to me so that you guys can see what it looks like. So Patty just sent me an important message. You'll notice that I have a message here that says, okay, this is important. So I'm going to go ahead and open it. If somebody can send, if somebody can send me urgent message, I just want to show you, because I'm not going to open it, so you guys can see that it is 100% true what it says, right? For 2 minutes, for 20 minutes, every 2 minutes, I'm going to get a notification. So it looks like Lynn just sent me an urgent message. I need your help. What I'm going to do is I'll show you. If I opened it, I wouldn't be getting those messages, okay? But if I didn't open it, you'll notice 2 minutes from now, I'm going to get another notification that there's an urgent message on the way. Is this person my style? Not necessarily. I like to call you. I like to communicate that way. But let's say I'm on a call, right? And I'm actually talking and I'm not going to be able to pick the phone up. I'm just going to hang up. If you still need an answer ASAP, what you'll notice is that this urgent messages might be, one of your best tools to communicate with somebody. So just wanted to quickly show you that. What you notice is that there's also a pay-per-click icon, okay? So, normally that means we can attach files. What you'll notice is we can actually upload from our computer. We can upload from our OneDrive. I'll go ahead and upload a document here from the computer. Modern Workplace. Do you have the report information I need available? It's a great question, Irvin. I'm just going to pretend like I did not see that. So I did say that. But, in that case scenario, let's say I'm going to pretend like I can't see it. What's interesting is he knows that I'm available. Okay, he can actually see that I have the green check mark. So he knows that if I'm purposely not responding to his message, he can actually call me. He's going to be able to call me, and I'll show you how to do that in just a sec directly from chat. Okay, so I just sent a document. Okay, I sent this press release. I'm going to give one caveat here inside of, Teams chat. What I will say is that, you're going to have more functionality because, you're not going to be able to send certain size documents through email, for example, as you can through chat. Chat is going to give you more options. However, you got to understand that Teams is built over the internet. Okay, so it's also built on top of SharePoint. And so the reason that's important is because anywhere you make edits, anywhere you work on a specific document, you're going to actually be able to see those edits in real time in that location. You notice that urgent message is back. I told you it's for reals. I'm not going to open it so that you'll see it come back one more time. But my point is, if I open up this press release, okay, say I just start making some random changes. Okay, I just start making some random changes to this document. If you were sending this document over to somebody just so they could look at it and not necessarily work on it, that makes total sense. But if you guys are sending it over so you can actually work and collaborate together inside of chat, all those edits are going to get saved here in this specific version of the document in this specific location inside of chat. And so it might make your life a little difficult to send that document, work on it together, and then have to go find it inside of this specific chat. It's useful if you want somebody to review it, but personally, in my opinion, if you're going to be working and collaborating together inside of a document, which will show you how to do it later today, I would recommend putting it in whatever channel file section inside of Teams first, knowing exactly where it's situated, and then sending the link to that document inside of the group chat so they can access it that way. That's how I would recommend doing that. Okay, so just an FYI there with documents inside of chat. Moving on, we got all the fun stuff, right? Any kind of emojis, right? Any kind of GIFs. You're going to be able to do all that fun stuff. I typically tell people, towards the end of the day, if you're tired, you're exhausted, you want to, get a little laugh, GIFs always help. So go ahead and give it a shot. However, getting back to the serious part here, one of the coolest things you can actually do here from chat is you can actually schedule meetings. Okay, and a lot of people don't realize that they can. If you look at this little calendar icon, if you hover over it, you notice it says schedule a meeting. So if I actually go ahead and I click this button, you notice it's actually going to take me directly here inside of a meeting invitation. But further on that point, you'll notice that it's actually going to automatically add every single person in that group chat to that meeting invitation. Again, you see this urgent message just came back from Lynn. So my point being, let's say you're in a group chat with a team of 10, 15 people or 5 to 10 people, and you want to quickly schedule a meeting. Instead of going in a calendar and going that way and setting in and then adding each person individually, again, for efficiency purposes, go into the group chat you have with all of them and schedule the meeting directly from there. It's going to add everybody. You're going to be able to give it a title. So let's say, this is a sales review. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and give it that title. What you'll notice inside of any meeting that you set, you're going to be able to actually, set a date, set a time. You can put it all day if you like. You can create repeating, dates if that's something that you're interested in here directly inside of Teams. But what's also really cool, assuming besides the actual notes section, you can put different things. you can actually send this invitation directly into channels. Okay. This might not mean much to you, but I'm going to go ahead and do this into the Contoso general channel. And then I'm going to talk through this and show you exactly what I did in just a second when you jump into Teams. But just know that you have this option available to you, and you'll see exactly why that's relevant. So I'm sending this meeting invitation directly into that channel of the Contoso team. I'm going to go ahead and schedule this in just a sec. But in case you weren't aware, you also have access to what's called the scheduling assistant. So you notice Megan and Lynn, me and Lynn, both have our calendars enabled here inside of Teams. And what this scheduling assistant gives you access to is it lets you know when people are free inside of the day. Okay, so if you wanted to schedule a meeting, let's say with this sales project team, what I'd be able to do is quickly schedule the meeting from chat, come into scheduling assistant to see when people are available, choose that time, and then go ahead and send that meeting invitation. Okay, so you're going to have a lot of different flexibility here inside of Teams chat that goes beyond just sending messages. And so just make sure you're totally aware of that. I'm going to go ahead and open up Lynn's message so it doesn't come back. But the last thing I wanted to quickly show you, which I think is one of the coolest and most important features here inside the chat, is you can actually call people directly. This is probably the most common way I actually call people. I don't like to search for them or go into the call section. It takes a little extra time. I just jump into my chat with them. I come here into the top right corner. You notice we have an audio and we have a video. This RDP session doesn't enable it. But obviously inside of your environment, you'd have access to it. So what you'll notice is I can just quickly call. Go ahead and cancel out of this firewall. It's just a bug in the RDP. Don't worry about it. Just press cancel. What you'll notice now is I'm actually calling you now. So everybody in that group chat should be getting a notification that I'm calling you from that group chat. If somebody picked up, you'll notice that we're just going to jump on a meeting just like we have here today, right? We're going to have all the capabilities that we have inside of any other regular meeting directly from that call. So, I personally call people like this all the time. And the reason it's also very cool is because whenever you call somebody directly from a group chat or any chat, the chat section is actually going to be a history of what you guys have been messaging each other back and forth. So if we jump on a call directly from chat and we have a document that we sent in here that we wanted to review, I'd have quick access and easy access to it. So, something I recommend, something I do all the time, it's Alex, Isaiah, and Lynn all picked up. Patty's here as well. We'd be able to have that conversation and, have and be able to communicate that way. Well, so notice that this is actually the older version of Teams here. So if this is what your environment looks like, just a heads up, if this is what your Teams meetings typically look like, you have the bar here at the bottom. Go ahead and turn on that button that I mentioned earlier after the session today. You do not have the most updated version of Teams. So just FYI, this is the older version. I'm going to go ahead and hang up here. But you'll notice again, the new communication experience, you guys. That's why they love to brand it that way. There's a lot of other features here inside of chat that you're going to be able to enable and talk to besides just sending messages back and forth. I'm going to pause for a quick second. Gene, I'd love to get your feedback so far on this chat function, if you wouldn't mind sharing. Is this something that, makes sense to you? Does it not make sense? Any honest feedback, I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, no, it makes sense to me, but in terms of getting my whole team doing this, I'm way far away from that. That is what I know.
What I will tell you, Gene, is I totally
and another
understand.
quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So does everything that's on, and this will show how clueless I am, so you can imagine, multiply that out. Everything that's in my normal email reflect in here in this environment?
So no, so this is separate from Outlook.
You've got to utilize both environments.
Yeah, there's certain ways to send Outlook emails into your Teams environment. I'll show you how to do that in just a second. But in terms of chat and emails, they're separate. They're totally separate. So what I tell people is use emails for certain communication, use chat for the majority of your communication is kind of how I would structure it. But I totally understand the fear, right? This is a new system. This is something totally different than people are used to.
There's a lot of steps. And yeah. I have people who are struggling with Outlook. So when you talk about jumping, even just keeping up with you today, and again, I'm not totally clueless, but I'm not tech savvy. So I'm somewhere in between, which is where most of us straddle, depending upon what we've had to learn to utilize. Now I've kept up, but like I said, I have some older associates. They're going to really struggle. to get into
Yeah,
this environment.
I think the key there, Gene, too, is, show them the value. Why does this even make sense for me? You'd have to be able to talk to that. Obviously, if you're still fresh on it, it's gonna be a little more difficult for you to do that. But hopefully, after today, you'll have some more talking points. But I think for me, what I will emphasize is that people respond when they see that there's a purpose and there's a reason for them to do that. So that's all I'm gonna say. Michael, I see you're unmuted. Do you want to share anything?
No, I say the same thing. It's all about training, and it's all about saying this is where you're going to go. Because when Andres puts up the teams portion of it, and you'll see the team, what we do, we have set up for each chamber that we're members of. We're keeping those chats amongst ourselves organized better than having to be all over the place and then having emails here, this person communicating one way. I will tell you that, we've eliminated, 25, 30% of our internal email. And then when it's late at night, instead of sitting there saying, where's that email, I'm searching for the chat. So I don't have to have the ones back and forth. So I
agree, Michael, and I totally see that value. I could just tell you right now, if Andres wants going to come and train my crew, he would have to slow this down. This entire half hour would probably be about 3 hours with my group in office. Okay,
but I hear that all the time. Yeah. Remember, this is sort of like fast food. It's not meant to be a full gourmet meal. Okay. It's a full overview to kind of let you know what could be, and happy to specifically, for anyone on there that needs a little more. This is just like giving you the menu to show you what could be and get it on.
All right, thank you. And Andres, you're doing a great job. It's
fast, don't worry, Gene.
Comfortable with it, so it's
I appreciate it. I want honest feedback, because then I know you're actually making sense to you. So totally, I appreciate that. So that's chat, everybody. If anyone has any other questions, you let me know. I'm happy to answer them. Otherwise, we're going to quickly jump into Teams, which is really the heart of this application. So go ahead and jump into Teams inside of your environment. If you've ever used something like Slack, this is going to, Maribel, you have a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask, is there like an app where you can download on an iPhone or an Android where if we're not on a computer, we can continue the chat through the phone?
Gotcha. So great question. Actually, you know what? The fact that I did not touch on that makes me shake my head. I should have definitely mentioned that earlier in terms of flexibility of Teams. Let me actually just touch on that entirely. One of the reasons people love Teams is because of how easy it is to access from anywhere that you are. Okay. So I'm currently talking to you right now through my desktop application. But I also typically throughout the day also have the web version enabled like we have here. And you notice Kyla is actually showing you the Teams app that she has downloaded onto her phone. You're not just going to have access to the chat. You're going to have access to everything off of that app. You're going to be able to access your calendar, your documents that we're going to run through today. I'll be able to make calls, send messages. You're going to have access to all of that. And so, that's really one of the calling cards is flexibility, right? And that's why, again, in this modern workplace that we're engaging in right now with everything going on, Teams makes a lot of sense. Does that make sense,
Maribel? The other thing is that it's available on every platform. And what's really cool with Teams today is if I had to go, walk someplace else, again, I'm home, or go out there, I could actually pull up my phone. And if I pull up my phone right now, it shows me that I'm on a call, and I could transfer this. And I don't even mean transfer. On the phone will tell me that I'm in a meeting, and they'll say, do you want to join? And now you wouldn't know that I'm on my phone in video working this way. And I could walk around, I could come back to a PC, or I can go someplace else and be able to, seamlessly be part of it.
Absolutely. Again, the flexibility piece is, super important. And so I hope that helps answer your question, Maribel. If not, please let me know. I'll jump into that. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Okay, no worries. So we're going to get here into the team section. As I was mentioning earlier, if you ever use something like Slack, this might remind you of it. It's a similar type of interface in terms of the way that it's set up, but there's a lot of other features in here besides Slack as well. What I mean by the interface is, what you'll notice is that the way it's structured is you're going to have specific teams. The way that as you see the little icon right here. So these are all teams: US sales, sales and marketing, retail, market project team. And within each of those teams, you can break them down into separate subsets called channels. Okay. So if you look at this very first one, we have the US sales team. and it's structured as a general channel, a sales east, and a sales west. People ask me all the time about the structure of teams and how I would recommend how to set it up internally for their organization. For me, I think it really depends on the size of your organization, as well as how useful or how much you're going to actually be here inside of teams. There's different trains of thoughts. One of them is, let's go ahead and just add one central team for everybody in the organization, and then let's break down that team into specific department channels. And then from that, we can create different teams for separate projects that we have going forward. Some other thoughts, which, especially if you're a larger organization, might make more sense, is actually just creating teams for every single department. Okay, breaking up those teams in different channels for different activities that they're all engaging in, and then for any ongoing projects, you create new teams. Gonna be up to you guys how you want to structure it. The one thing I will say is be very careful with what we call teams creep, or just way too many teams getting created inside of your environment. There's a lot of different organizations that I work with that have specific policies in place where you actually have to get approval through the leadership team to actually create a team. Why is this important? It's primarily important just because it can get really overwhelming if everybody's creating a new team every single day. It gets exciting. Oh my gosh, I'm creating a team. And so if everybody has the ability to do that and you don't, handle that, you might wake up tomorrow and you have 100 teams inside of your environment. And we're doing the opposite of what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to be more efficient, not, more just like crazy everywhere. So just a heads up there, something that you might want to consider. What I'm going to do here is I want to get into the Contoso team here. I'm going to quickly run through, the general channel, because every team that you create automatically gets a general channel assigned to it. I'm going to quickly go through post section, the file section, how you might want to use it, how you might want to leverage it. And if you guys have any questions, please let me know. So quickly into this post section, you'll notice every team that's created, it automatically gets a post of files and then this plus button as well. This post section is almost, you can think about it like a big group chat for that specific team. However, I would recommend not to have full-blown conversations inside of the post section, primarily because of notifications. So if you remember we talked about earlier, you're only getting notifications if it's directly assigned to you, okay? But that might not mean that the information that's getting passed back and forth might not be important for everybody on the team. However, because they're not going to get a direct activity notification, it's going to be a lot easier for them to actually miss that conversation. And so if you're going to be having a full-blown back and forth, I recommend doing that inside of a group chat that you created with everybody inside of this team, so that it's going to be easy for you to make sure you don't miss anything. However, there is, specific situations where using the post section makes total sense. Number one, any, big announcements that you want to make for everybody in the group. Say you don't want to send this in the group chat, you just want to make sure everybody's aware here inside the post section, feel free to do that. So for example, I'm going to make an announcement that there is a team meeting at 8 a.m. Okay. So what you'll notice is I actually sent this this meeting invitation. I'll talk about that in just a second. The first thing I'm going to do here in the post section that makes sense to me is I'm going to actually make an announcement. This could be, new tools that we're going to be leveraging. It could be an update on the specific project we're working on. It could be an update on maybe scheduling. However you want to use it, I think announcements make a lot of sense here into the post section. The way to make announcements, very effective, and you notice Patty just said okay, so I got a conversation, notification about that. What I will say, the way that it makes it work is you actually directly mention people who are relevant to this, because you want to make it as easy as possible for them to see it. So if you remember, I said you can actually directly mention people. The way you would do that is actually clicking the @ button. So @. I recommend everybody go ahead and send me a message in here. Go @Megan Bowen. I hate what you're talking about today. It doesn't make any sense. Why are we even having a meeting? Okay, what I want you to do is I'll show you. If I @Alex, for example, I'll say, please bring the coffee. I'm just joking here. But if I say @Alex, why do we need to meet? Such a waste of time. I love it. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and laugh at this message. But the point being, you notice when she actually did that, I got an activity notification about that here in the bottom right of my screen because she mentioned directly. Okay, Miriam, same thing. I got an activity notification for that. See you soon. Okay, so if you want to make this effective, you want to make it easy for people to see it, directly mentioning the appropriate person makes a lot of sense here inside of the post section. It's going to be the best way to get their attention. Okay, so those are two things that I recommend here inside the post section. The other thing is what you're actually looking at. I think sending a meeting inside of a post section makes total sense. See, looks like Alex just sent me a message. I'll go on my activity to see what's up. Okay, Isaiah, I have a dolphin ticket for you. Okay, cool. Well, that's awesome. I love it. I'm going to click on the back really quick. What you'll notice again is I sent this meeting invitation directly here into the post section. Okay, why is that useful? Let's say we need to have this sales team meeting, and this sales team is 30 people. Okay, I don't know about you guys. I personally do not want to individually add every single person to that meeting invitation. Maybe I created a group so I could just add the group, but let's just assume I don't have that. So I would have to individually add every single person. Instead of doing that, I'm going to make my life a lot easier. I'm just going to send it here into the channel. And then I'm going to directly mention the team and say, hey, team, we have this sales meeting. Please come in. The invitation is here inside of into the post section. They can click on this invitation, and then they can quickly press the join, and now they're in the meeting. And so, I also think that's a very effective way to go ahead and use the post section. Gene, the next thing I wanted to quickly touch on, you were talking about email integration here inside of Teams. One of the cool things that you can actually do here inside of Teams is you can send some email threads directly into the post section. I'm not sure if people knew that. So the way that you would actually do that, it's on a channel by channel basis. So what I mean by that is that each channel, not each team. So you notice, for example, the Market Project team has all these different channels associated with it. Okay. In this case, we only have one channel. But what I mean is that each of these different channels have different email addresses tied to it. Inside of this one, there's only one, and I'll show you how to actually get it. If you click on the channel on the ellipses, you'll notice this is where you can also manage your channel notifications that we were talking about previously, but you can also go ahead and get an email address. Okay, so if I go ahead and click on get email address, setting up your team, what I'd be able to do, let's see if this works now. Nope, okay, having issues. So let's try it here with the Market Project. If I go ahead and get an email address, what you'll notice is that it's going to actually give me the email address for direct access to this team. And so what I would do is I'd go ahead and come in here, I'd highlight this right here from 943 all the way to teams.ms. I'd actually put that as a recipient inside of my email, and that email is then going to be sent directly here into the post section. It's really that simple. Cool little feature, something that I use if there's ever any emails, let's say, for example, with a client that I want to update the whole team with, I'll then send it into the actual post section. So that's another great way to use this post section. Some other tools that we can use that make a lot of sense is actually for help with editing documents. And I'll show you how to actually do that in just a second. But before we do that, I want to actually jump into files to talk about managing work here inside of your actual Teams environment. Let me pause though for a second. I know I've been talking a lot. Is there any questions on what I just covered in the post section? No worries. Okay, cool. So that is posts. Let's quickly get into files and what they mean for you inside of Teams. The first thing I will show you is, if you notice, we don't have any files inside of here. This might be you if you're just quickly adopting Teams as your first look at it. However, typically, assuming you've been inside of Teams for a while, you're going to be able to see all the different documents inside specific teams and channels that you have access to. What you'll notice is that you can actually create specific documents directly here inside of Teams if you wanted to. So if I'm ever working on a project and I'm creating a document with a coworker, you can actually do that directly here inside of Teams. Additionally, you'll be able to upload any documents directly from your computer or your OneDrive. You can actually sync your OneDrive. So if you have all your documents stored in a OneDrive folder, for example, you'd be able to actually sync that here with specific Teams channels. The only word of caution there is that if you have any personal documents, let's say it's your personal OneDrive, you got to remember this is a collaboration space. And so everyone's going to have access to it. Might not be the best idea. Okay. Something else that might be relevant. Let's say you have all your documents in a different cloud provider. So for example, let's say you have them all in Dropbox, you have them all in ShareFile, all in Google Drive, whatever you're currently using. Instead of actually having to, let's say, delete all those documents and navigate them all over here, you'd actually be able to just create an access point to those documents directly here inside of Teams. Make your life a little easier. If that's what you want to do. Essentially, you'd have a folder now that would say Google Drive, for example. You'd be able to click on Google Drive and it'll give you all the different documents that you could look at directly inside of Teams. Okay. In this case,
where do you get that link, Andres?
For the cloud storage? It's right here.
Yeah, like the different platforms. Where was that?
Yeah, so if you come here into the file section, you see this plus add cloud storage. Go ahead and click on that. You notice this is going to give you the different providers that are available right now. Not sure if this is static or moving, but I know these for sure work.
No, I got something different. In files, right?
Yeah, in files and then plus add cloud storage.
Oh, where would I don't see that as an option in my own Teams.
Interesting.
Under.
I wonder if it's hidden.
You're right. So under files, and then you have that option should pop up with all the. Got it.
Yeah, you got it. All right, perfect. All right, awesome. Yeah, so that's how, you know, a lot of people, if they're doing that first navigation into Teams, they want to start that process. A lot of people start there. Completely up to you. You know, my personal preference is I like having access to real tangible documents inside of my environment. And so I prefer to just download everything here into Teams. But of course, you know, completely your prerogative, however you want to deal with that. What I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to go ahead and create a Word document. I'm going to call this a potluck list just for fun. Okay, and I want everybody to actually help me edit this document. Okay, so I'm going to create this. I'm going to create a list. Let's just say, you know, 1 through 7, for example. And I just want everybody to come in here and actually start, you know, give me some food items for this potluck. You know, I'm obviously just doing a little joke here, but the point is I just want to show you how we can all collaborate together. And so I'm going to also show you some options that make it easier for your team members to actually get access to the document, okay? Because maybe you guys don't exactly know how to do it. First thing, it actually has to do with the post section. You remember you can actually send access in the post section to documents if you want to collaborate with somebody. The way you would actually do that is here, this conversation button inside of the actual document. If I click on this conversation button and I say, for example, help me edit, I go ahead and press the send. What you'll notice when I get out of this document and I get back into the post section is that this document is now readily available. It says help me edit. People can be right here, get the notification, quickly touch on this button, and it's going to take them directly here inside of the document that we're working on. So that's one way to actually do that. The other way that I would recommend doing it, and I think it's personally really easy because you can send it into group chats, is just getting a link to documents. So remember, this is all built over the internet, right? So every single document that you have created has a specific, you know, link associated with it. So if you click on the ellipses, you're going to have a lot of different options. I'll run through some of these in just a minute, but the most important one here is this copy link. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this link. It looks like it was copied. I'm going to move into the chat window. I'm going to get into this group chat that we have for this project sales team, and I'm going to press send.
Oh.
Okay, so now if they make edits to this document, it's not going to be like I did previously. It's not going to be the document that I downloaded and put into Teams. It's not going to be a direct link to this document that's inside of my environment. Okay, so if I go here back into Teams, you now have multiple options to get in here. It looks like Isaiah's beat us to the punch. He's already here inside of the document. Awesome. But okay, you got 3 options. You can either go to the chat window, get on that link. You can go into the post section and click on this link, or you can just, you know, strictly go into files and then open up that document. Everybody go ahead and jump into this document. You have 3 different ways to do it. I want us all to start making some edits together. You notice it looks like we have Isaiah or Irvin. We have Irvin and Patty currently inside of this document with me right now. You know, they've made some changes. They've added nachos, they've added pizza. Anybody wants some barbecue wings? That might be another option. But what I want to show you is you notice Irvin's actually typing. You can actually see all these edits real time. So if you ever use something like Google Drive, for example, this might look, you know, pretty similar to you. But, you know, the other thing I'd say on top of that is you have it organized. It's easy to function. And you're going to be able to make any edits, see a version history inside of SharePoint if you're interested in that. And you can also actually see who's inside of it with you. So we have Irvin, Lynn, and Patty all inside this document making edits with me. So, you know, very useful for collaboration purposes. You know, it just makes your life a lot easier when it comes to actually getting things done. I'm not sure if anyone's ever been in a position where you have a version of the document, you send that document over email, they download it, they make their edits, then they re-upload it, send it over email, and then we do that little back and forth like 10 times, okay? Yeah, we are over that, you guys. We are doing all the collaboration in one location at the same time now. That's what we've progressed to. That's what the technology's at. And I'm pretty sure you'll see pretty much every other provider getting to this place at the, you know, pretty soon. This is where the industry is headed. So really cool feature. Kyla, I'm curious what you think about this. Is this something that you knew about, something that you didn't know? No, you did not know. Gotcha.
No, and my partner and I, he'll write a letter, or I'll write a letter, and then I'll send it through email. He'll send it back, and it's like he doesn't, we can't keep track of anything that way. This
Yeah.
is awesome. This is awesome.
Perfect. Happy to hear that. Stephanie?
Yes, good morning, everyone. I
Morning.
have a question because I am new with everything related with Teams Microsoft, but we use Asana. So in Asana, I see we have some things very similar to what you were explaining so far. So I would like to know if you know Asana, if you can like help me to try to figure out some of the like big difference between Asana and Microsoft Teams,
Yeah, let me
please.
quickly look at it, because what I remember from Asana is it's mostly for projects, I think, if I remember correctly. Let me look. I'm looking it up again for you.
Yeah, it works for projects, but for example, if we are just having a conversation about a topic in a specific and we would just want to share some documents and do exactly what you are doing here, the addition with the conversation and the chat on the side, we can do that as well. We just have to create a project called, for example, I don't know, Black Friday list or checklist, and then we are able to do exactly what you are doing here right now.
Yeah, I think, the main difference I'd say, just quickly looking at it, and great question, by the way. Um, from my experience with Asana, I know that it's mainly for projects, but the other thing on top of it is also a very specific skill set for that application. It's one of the things that you're doing, right? You're creating those projects, you're working on them together, you're getting back to that timeline, making sure you get things accomplished. What's different here inside of Teams is that this is only a piece of what you can do inside of Teams, right? The document storage, the collaboration, the project management is definitely something you can do in Teams. We'll talk about an application. I think it's very useful for that in just a second. But on top of that, right, as opposed to what you have on Asana, you're also going to be able to send the chat. You're going to be able to look at your calendar. You're going to be able to call people. You're going to be able to make sure you're up to date on all your notifications. And on top of that, it's also going to be integrated inside of your Office 365 suite. So if you're already using a lot of different applications inside of Office 365, it makes a lot of sense for you to navigate back here into Teams. So I guess the answer would be, they're both good. They both have their tools and their skill sets where it makes sense for people. But if you're looking for something on top of just the work and the document storage, Teams is going to give you so many other features beyond that as well. Did I answer your question there? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I don't know if I can get a little bit more personal about it. In my case, or the case of my company, what we do, we work with people around the world. So we are usually, my team and I, we are not connect exactly at the same time. So in this case, I guess Teams Microsoft like doesn't affect the way that we work in the specific case of my company, because we are not connected at the same time. So I think Microsoft is more if we are all the time connect, or like we have to like keep a conversation or chat during the day, right? I think so that in this case it will be better if I use Teams Microsoft if my team and I we are connect during the same day.
Yes, I mean, it's going to be great for connection during the same day, but I also say, throughout the entire day, it's also going to be useful because you're going to come in here. It's going to say, do you want to see recent changes? You're going to be able to see all the recent changes. You're going to have a hub where you have all those documents and you can see exactly where you stand in those projects and, work back to it. The other thing I will say too, something if you're working with people outside of the country, inside of chat and inside of all these things, you're going to have what's called immersive reader as well as translation. You're going to be able to translate to, a bunch of different languages. You can be able to send messages in the other language if you wanted to as well. And you're actually going to be able to have it read out to you in your actual language if you were interested in that. So again, I
Oh,
think
okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I didn't know that.
yeah, I think it comes down to, I think, all the functionality. I mean, Asana has a lot of great things, I'm sure, to it. Teams has more. That's probably the best way to put it. There's just more
Yeah, no, and I
features on
am
top of
new
that.
with Teams Microsoft, so to be honest, I just try when someone send me a link to enjoy a meeting, and that's it. So I am totally new with Teams Microsoft.
Gotcha. All great questions. I appreciate the input.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that is the collaboration piece here, you guys, and that is really the structure of Microsoft Teams. What I will want to emphasize, though, too, in case I didn't make this clear enough, is, channels and teams. What's the difference? The main thing is that channels are built inside of Teams, but the other thing that you also need to keep in mind is that all these channels are their own separate environments. And so what I mean by that is, this document that we're working on here inside of this Contoso team, if I had another channel inside of here, right, and let's say I created a channel, that document's not going to be readily available across each individual channel. So let me actually show you how to create a channel. I'm going to go ahead and come in here, click on the ellipses for the team. You'll notice I'm going to have a lot of different options inside of here. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and click on the add channel. Let's just say I call this the sales team, right? I'm going to keep the privacy standard. I'll just go ahead and just quickly add the channel. What you'll notice here is now that when I add that channel, if I go to the file section, it's going to be empty. Okay, it's not going to have that document inside of it. Okay, and so that's crucial for you to understand. Not only when it comes to security and access to those documents, again, we're talking about identity and access management, but also when we're talking about just understanding the platform, they're all separate environments, right? We have a general channel, we have files, we have a sales team channel, and we don't have that file here because we didn't put in the sales team channel. Here's an idea, which actually is good because of that, is let's say we have this Contoso team and we have some information that's a little more important, a little more sensitive. We don't necessarily want everyone to have access to. Because these are all separate environments, we're going to have the ability to create what's called a private channel where only specific people are going to have access to that information. So if I click on this ellipses right here again for that team, and then I click on the add channel function, you remember last time I just kept it standard, accessible to everyone. So essentially what that's saying is that if they're a part of the team, if you create just a standard regular channel, they'll have access to that channel. However, if I say this is HR, for example, and I click on this drop down and I click on private, accessible only to a specific group of people within the team, and then I press next, what you'll notice is I'm now going to have to individually add every single person to that HR channel. So let's say, I'll just put the add symbol. I'll add Irvin. I'll add, let's say, Lee. And then I'll add one more person. Let's say I add Alan DeYoung. Okay, if I go ahead and I press add everybody. The other thing you'll notice, you can actually decide if they're either a member or an owner. Only real difference here is they're going to have the ability to change settings. So let's say I make Irvin an owner, right? And I keep everybody else a member. Just keep that in mind. He'll be able to change settings now inside of this channel. But what's most important is you notice now I've created this HR channel, but there's a lock by it, okay? If anybody would love to share, I'd love to hear from you. But if you look into Contoso and you weren't any of the 3 people that I added, do you even see that channel exists? The answer should be no. Whenever you create a private channel, it's only viewable, it's only accessible to the people who are directly added. So I encourage everybody to go ahead and see. If you don't see it, it looks like Kyla didn't see that the channel exists. Really cool tool. I think it's important for any specific documents that are very private, very important. If you only want specific people to have access to it, these private channels are going to have an increased level of security. Because now if somebody's trying to break in, they're going to have to break into the team by getting directly invited to it, which is not going to happen. And then let's say they get there, then they'd have to break into the channel that they weren't invited to, right? So there's 2 layers of protection now. So, in terms of security, again, like I said, it's going to be very useful, very effective for your organization. Okay, so that is Teams. That's the posts, that's the file section. But again, Teams is the thing that keeps on giving. There's something else that you can do here inside of Teams that I think a lot of people would find very valuable. And that specifically is going to be the integration of applications that you use on a daily basis. Okay, so I'm going to stick here inside of the Contoso General channel. Feel free to play around on whatever channel you like. But I wanted to show you is that if you look at this plus button, okay, go ahead and click on that for anything. What you'll notice is that, again, Teams is not just an application, it's a platform, okay? And the reason I say that is because if I just scroll, you'll see all these different applications that have been approved inside of this Teams App Store. These are all going to be able to be directly added here into Teams. I mean, this number has been growing ever since Teams got super popular, so I'm assuming they're going to have even more integrations available pretty soon. But my point is, there's going to be a whole host of applications that you can actually integrate into your Teams environment that'll help you get your work done on a daily basis. I'm going to start with something called Planner. Has anyone ever heard of Planner? Has anyone had any experience with it? I'm curious if you have. If not, totally okay. I'm going to go ahead and open that up. Michael talks about how there's actually going to be some updates pretty soon when it comes to do inside of Microsoft. They're kind of going in that direction, trying to integrate both the applications together. But if I go ahead and I just add this really quickly, ultimately what this is, and Stephanie, this might be interesting to you. This is all about accountability. Okay, that's what it's meant for. It's meant for task completion. Okay, and so the point is, what you're able to do here inside of Planner is you can set specific tasks, you can assign them to specific people to get completed at specific times. Okay, and it's going to make sure it follows up with those people. It's going to make sure it keeps those people accountable and make sure that they actually complete that work. So, for example, I'll just create one. Let's say sales funnel review. Okay, so I want them to review their sales funnel and give me some insights, let's say, to some of the people on my team. I'm going to go ahead and set a due date. Let's say I want this next Monday, and I'm going to go ahead and assign this to some of the salespeople on my team. Let's say, for example, Deborah is a member of my team. We have Grady, who's a member of the team, and then, for example, Lynn Robbins. What I'll be able to do now is I can actually click on Add Task, and what you'll notice if I actually open this up a little further, I'm going to be able to customize this specific task a little more. But what's going to happen is these 3 people who I assigned it to are going to get a direct activity notification that I assigned them this sales funnel review task. Okay, they can come in here and they can say, all right, I've actually started this process. So you can start to understand that they're getting going. You can actually set a priority. Let's say this is super important. And what's really cool is you can actually put some notes. So let's say I need this on my desk Monday morning. Okay, so you're giving them notes in terms of what you're expecting. And then you can also add checklist items for specific things inside of this task that you want them to complete that will tell you that this task has been completed. So let's say, I want a 5-page report. Okay, seems a little excessive, but let's say we want a 5-page report. We want that report to have a detailed information on outreach efforts. Okay, and then let's say we want it in Times New Roman fall. I'm obviously just joking here, but I'm just giving you some items, for example, in a checklist that you can start adding. And what's really cool is they can actually come in here and they can start checking off different things that they've actually completed throughout the task. Once they've completed, it says 2 out of 3 right now. Once they actually finish it, it's going to complete the actual task, and we'll know that they actually completed it. And so, again, why is this important? It's for accountability purposes. If you want people to complete certain things by a specific deadline, this is a tool that you can use to make sure it stays on top of them. The other thing I'll say is that it's kind of annoying in a good way. And what I mean by that is, it's going to stay on top of you. So if you're a day out, you haven't completed it, I promise you're going to get a notification. If the day has passed when it was supposed to be due and you haven't completed it, I promise you're going to get a notification. So going to stay on top of you, going to make sure that you complete things, and going to be a good friend for you when it comes to actually completing tasks. Something else you can actually do is create specific buckets inside a planner. I'll just quickly show you an example of what I did here for our organization. We were onboarding a lot of different clients, right? And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to create specific tasks on a week-by-week basis of things I wanted them to complete as we began our engagement together. And so, this is a way that you might want to consider structuring it. You could structure it on a bucket that's just for an overall project, and you can create different tasks for that specific project. Really up to you and how you want to structure it. But I promise you, you integrate Planner, you're going to make sure you stay on top of your tasks, and it's to help you, run your business a little more efficiently. So I recommend Planner. Think about, take a look at it, dive into it a little more, and see if it's something that you might want to consider. The other one that I am 100%, this is something that you need. There's no argument on this one. You're definitely going to want this, is OneNote. Has anyone ever used OneNote before? It's a lot more common. A lot of people might have more experience with it. I see some shaking heads. Lamar, have you used OneNote? I'd love to hear your feedback on OneNote. Or that might have been an accidental hand raise. It happens all the time. You're muted. Okay, there you go.
No, I mean, I've used it occasionally more for my personal stuff, more than business. Most of them haven't. I guess, I'm the millennial in the group. Everybody is either older than me or too young to know what it is, but I've used it more so between my phone and the desktop version. So
awesome.
I'm more versed in it than they are.
Yeah, one I'm sure you've been using it, you kind of understand it a little better. The one difference I will say is, from a personal use as opposed to a collaboration use, the personal use is great, right? Because it's your own little notebook that you can look at, and it's very useful. But it's, in my opinion, it's even more useful inside of a collaboration space, primarily because now everyone's going to have access to all those notes, right? So if I could just quickly create it, I'll show you. It's actually described to me as a digital 3-ring binder. I thought that was the perfect explanation for it. If I just create a new notebook, we'll call this the sales team. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and save that. What I'll show you when this actually opens up is that you're going to be able to create specific sections and then specific pages within each of those sections. So let's say, for example, why is this giving me problems? Come on, you guys. Okay, so I'm actually opening this in the browser because it's giving me some issues. But what you'll notice here, so you can actually just see it, what it looks like, is you can see that you have sections. So let's call this, meeting notes, for example. Okay, so I have a meeting notes section where I just take notes on pretty much everything. So any type of meeting that we have for specific clients, I'll have a OneNote tied to each specific client. Okay, and then I'll have those OneNotes that has a meeting section for each of those. So then every time I'm meeting with someone, let's say this is meeting A, let's say this is meeting B, for example, I'm taking all those notes, right? And what's really cool is because, again, this is in a collaboration space. Let's say me, Lamar, and Kyla were all supposed to be on a meeting, but Kyla was out sick today. Okay, me and Lamar run the meeting. We take all the notes, we put it down. She's going to be able to come in here, even from home, because, Teams can be accessed remotely, look at those notes and stay up to date with what's going on. So this is the one that I don't budge on. I think it makes total sense. You're always going to need to be taking notes and making sure you're up to date. So if we can do that on a team wide basis, it's just going to make your life a lot easier, a lot more simple to deal with. So I'm pretty bullish on OneNote. I recommend it for everybody. I think there's always a use case for it. So that's OneNote. Go ahead and leave. The other thing that you might want to consider is, maybe a website. So, Microsoft recommends this because they know a lot of their customers either are doing a lot of research on a similar site every day, or they have some type of intranet site where they get a lot of access to information, or maybe they just want access to a specific website so that they can reference it really quickly. So let me just show you. If I click on website here, I'll just, quickly just show you Microsoft because I know the URL pretty easily. But, let's just say you have this website, /www.microsoft.com. Okay, so let's say we go ahead and we put this website in here. It's pretty simple. It's just going to give you access to that website directly inside of Teams. Okay, so again, if you're doing a lot of research on a similar site, if you have an intranet, if you have a place that you're frequenting every single day, instead of having to leave the application, they wanted to give you an option to actually just be able to look at it directly here inside of Teams. This doesn't necessarily a use case. There's not always a use case for everybody, but for some people, it makes a lot of sense. So I just wanted to make sure I shared that with you. If you do a lot of things inside of SharePoint, okay, you'd actually be able to go ahead and do that, add a SharePoint page, right? That's something that other people might be using it for. Gene, you have a question?
Yeah, so like we have a client relationship management system. We could just put the link to that there and then we'd be able to go into that.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
The only thing that there might be potential issues with, Gene, is if everyone has a separate account, this is meant for general pages. Because if everyone has a separate account, right, they'd have to be logging in and logging out.
No, they don't. They don't. It's a general login. So, well, no, it is an individual login. Okay, so yeah, that would
something to consider.
Okay,
Michael?
Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say that when we build the teams, we try to make it easy to have information at their fingertips. So that's why we kind of add some of the things that are there. There's another way to have kind of a single sign-on to your CRM from here as the application. So just a simple piece.
Okay.
Yep. Perfect. So that is Teams, you guys. I mean, I know I went through a bunch of stuff there inside of just the Teams portion. Stephanie, thanks. I have to leave. Hope you guys send me a link. Not a problem. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you learned a little bit more about Teams here today. So we've gone through activity, we've gone through chat, we've gone through Teams. Just a couple quick things to run through, just calendar and calling, and then I'll give you guys some time back here in your day. Kyla, I see you're typing, so go ahead and just send the message. Let's see. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly jump into calendar while you guys are sending a message. You have to run too. Oh, no worries, Kyla. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming. Take care. Last thing I will say here inside of calendar, number one question is that, does it have anything to do with my Outlook? Number one thing, yes, it's completely synced. Everything that you see in your Outlook, you're going to be able to see in your Teams. Same thing from Teams to Outlook. The only real major difference that you'll see is there's a little more functionality inside of the Outlook calendar. You can choose specific types of meetings that you want. But for the most part, access to the meeting information, access to what's going on a daily basis, it's going to be pretty much the exact same thing here inside of the calendar section on your Teams. And so, this is definitely something that is going to be useful for you. It's going to make your life a lot easier. You're going to be able to make sure you stay on top of everything that's going on. And so, I recommend Calendar just primarily just for making sure you understand what you need to take care of on a daily basis going forward. When it comes to setting actual meetings, the only thing you're going to have to do here is you can either highlight a section. So let's say from 12 to 1, I can highlight this section. And then it's going to take us back into this meeting invitation that we were working on previously. Or you can actually go here into the new meeting, a plus new meeting. And then you go ahead, add the title, and do all that cool stuff. That's going to be one of the coolest ways and easiest ways to actually schedule meetings. The other thing on top of that I do recommend, especially now while we're in a virtual world, is a lot of times, you might be in a position where you need to record yourself. Obviously, you can record yourself directly just from your computer, but if you want some of the functionality inside of Teams, like a background that I have available today, as well as sharing your screen, you'd be able to actually record yourself and have all that in this Meet Now function. Maribel, I see your question. Can you link the two calendars, Outlook and Teams? What exactly do you mean by that, Maribel? Because they're already synced. Is there a specific thing that you're thinking about linking?
Oh, no, if they're already synced, I didn't hear that part. I'm sorry. That was my question. Thank you.
Great question. Yeah. They're completely synced. Yeah. So anything on your Teams is going to be on Outlook. Anything on Outlook is going to be on Teams. But again, this Meet Now function, I'll just quickly show you. Again, if you notice, I can actually start a meeting with myself. If I join it, it's just going to be any other Teams meeting. And if I wanted to record this, it's going to send it to my stream, and I'm going to be able to have the background. I'm going to be able to share my screen, and I can make it a really cool video if I was looking to do that. So, something I do regularly, I just want to share with you. That Meet Now function can honestly be a pretty useful tool for you. Okay, let me quickly get into calling. This is something that I think is very useful for organizations to think about, specifically voice over IP. There's specific calling plans associated in Teams as well as other third-party services that you can integrate. The reason I say that it's something that you might want to consider is just because of my experience from what I've seen. A lot of organizations are spending a lot of money on different applications for different uses. And if they were able to find a way to actually bring that all together under one umbrella, they're going to be able to save on a per user basis quite a bit of money. And so this is not more relevant besides calling. I mean, I think calling is one of the biggest things. I mean, I'll give you a terrible worst case scenario example. I was talking to other companies previously that told me, at the very beginning, earlier in the year, they had just invested in an on-prem phone system, and then all of a sudden the pandemic hits and nobody's got a phone. Okay, so it's nice until it doesn't work, right? So the way to mitigate any kind of risk associated with something like that is let's enable voice over IP so that we have access to our calling abilities over the internet. Okay, so that means that because of the flexibility of Teams, on the web, on the app, on your phone, you're also going to have that enhanced flexibility associated with your calling. So if you enable Teams calling or whatever third-party service that you might want to enable here directly inside of Teams, you're going to be able to make calls from your desktop. You're going to be able to make calls from the web, and you're also going to be able to make it from the app. If I can actually show you my personal environment here inside of Teams, I can show you what it's enabled when you have voice enabled. Okay, if you have voice enabled, you're going to have your speed dial section. I'll just quickly run through this, right? It's going to be the most relevant people that you talk to. You're going to have all your contacts. You're going to have a history of all the different calls that you've made. And you're also going to have automatically transcribed voicemails. If I just quickly open it, you'll see it just writes it out for me. I don't even have to listen to it. But primarily what I wanted to show you was this specifically when it came to your number here and the ability to call, right? So you notice I just have a dial pad that I can quickly call somebody from the app. And if again, like I mentioned, if you got on the web or on the phone, you'd have all those same capabilities. And because, again, it's over the internet, you're going to have the ability to make those calls from pretty much anywhere. And of course, if you integrate it all together under one platform, like I mentioned, take a look internally in your environment. See how much you're spending on all the tools you get from Teams, as well as your phone system. Add it up together on a per user basis. I promise you, you're probably going to be able to save some money integrating that into Teams. So that's something that I think you can walk away with, something that you can consider for your personal organization when it comes to calling and all the features enabled with that. I know I went a little fast. I covered a lot of different stuff. Michael, is there anything you wanted to add?
I just wanted to make sure that the Teams voice calling plan is different than your regular subscription, and different than also if you're using the conference call option. So it's like having a whole phone system in the cloud.
Exactly. You got a phone system in the cloud. It's a great way to describe it. You know, what you need to understand though is that you automatically get access to call anybody internally in your organization, no matter what, assuming you have a team subscription. But if you want to start making outbound calls outside of your organization, that's going to be an extra fee. But like I said, if you look at how much you're spending, it's probably going to be cheaper if you integrate under one umbrella. Just my personal opinion. I recommend you take a look and see if that makes sense for you. So I know we ran through a bunch of different things here today through Teams. What I want to end with here is I want everybody to just have an understanding of the theory behind Teams. Again, it was meant to be a place, a location, a platform that you can use for the majority of the different work that you do on a daily basis. So you can really be more efficient every single day. Every single day you're working, you can collaborate, you can communicate, and you can more easily work alongside your coworkers every single day. I almost think about it as a conglomerate of a lot of different applications put together. You're going to have the ability to get immediate notifications. You have the opportunity to do internal communication through chat. You have document storage, availability, and collaboration inside of Teams. You have access to a calendar, and you can make calls outside of the application. So you can imagine the amount of work that went into this, the amount of features and capabilities you have inside of Teams. It's really going to be something that if you integrate it into your daily workflow, it's going to make your life a lot easier. I 100% am behind that and believe that. So I hope you learned something from today. I'm going to just pause here. I'm going to give it back to Michael. If you guys have any questions, you let us know. I want to make sure we make everything as clear as possible. So Michael?
That's a great summation. And again, guys, this was just meant to be a taste. Couple things that that you look at. Sometimes all of this is overwhelming. And I will tell you that it's always crawl, walk, run. Almost all the clients that we've implemented Teams for, Teams starts off as just a chat. Sometimes they use some OneDrive, sometimes they use it, but Microsoft's theory is to be able to have this as the one-stop shop for your day. And I tell you that we've moved all of LAN's documents into Teams. We have teams organized for the help desk, teams organized for sales. It doesn't have to be elaborate, and sometimes it's ugly and we rethink about it and we make it better. So I think that those things are really good. Also keep in mind that we use this as a messaging platform for everything. So we do all of our meetings through Teams. We're doing a large not-for-profit event on December 8th. This is actually for a true, I can't remember the name of, it's almost like Boys and Girls Club, but we're doing, a couple hundred people using Teams, and they'll be able to actually see this, hear us in English. And I know there's a lot of European countries that are having presenters that are coming in, and we're actually testing for them to be speaking, in their native German. And, someone in Miami could be listening to that in, I'll call it US Spanish on there. So we're testing some of those things that are out there. And then lastly, listen, the biggest thing that's missing in Teams today, and, for those that are regular Zoom users or breakout rooms, they're coming any day. We see that, we see updates coming to this, but the multilingual piece and everything really makes it so that you can do a one-to-many. And in the live event versus this, which is really kind of cool, I did this as a test last week. You're like a producer. You have panelists. I have one screen that shows me what the live looks like, and I'm a producer where I have the panels of everyone else's screens to be shared. And now I could say, hey, Andres, it's you, and I could share his screen to go out there. So there's a lot of cool things that you look at, and it's a growing platform. And I still am a Zoom user for some things, but I say that Zoom is one way. It's one thing. Teams is multi-platform, and you can use it for almost everything. So I'll leave it at that. Hopefully you guys had a good time, got some things out of there. I will follow up with a survey. I will send an email with a couple of, last time it was 5 or 6, but I'll send some cool PDFs that are like quick starters. Some of our vendors gave us, which I love it, like Teams for Dummies. There's one to do make your Teams meetings rockstar meetings. I got some pretty cool PDFs that I'll send out that I've been gathering that are very informational. So again, if you guys have no questions, and thanks guys for coming on board and, hang around for a couple minutes if you guys think of anything.
Great summation there, Michael. Again, thank you so much, everyone, for coming. I'm going to be here if you guys got questions, okay? So anything, you let me know. I want to make sure we can answer anything. I go into the chat window. I see a message. Thank you. Excited to start using Teams. Awesome, Maribel. Hope I made you a believer today. I hope I did. That's awesome. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Lamar. Have a great day. Appreciate it.